Okay, I got it in the press. Tie right in part of the knuckle. Copper bracket parts of the knuckle under this plate. Fits pretty even. I got a socket and I got a spacer. And we'll see how it goes. Man, it's tight. There it comes. Whew. Man. That sucker is in there. Alright. It's going. So, get my idea. My drift, I guess. Okay, it's out. There it is. Clean it up best you can. Match up your new bearing to your old bearing. And put some anti-seize in there. And then we'll press the new bearing in. There's no in or out on this bearing. On some bearings they'll have the trigger wheel for the ABS on the bearing. It'll be a black surface right here instead of shiny. And that the trigger wheel is built into that. There, since our trigger wheel is on the axle shaft, we don't have an inner and outer, okay? But I'll stick the numbers in, okay? Here, all my parts are cleaned up. So now I'm gonna stick my bearing in and go in there like that. And we're gonna press it down. You don't wanna be pressing on any part of the bearing part. You wanna press on the outer part. So in order to do that, we're gonna take our old bearing and use that to press the new one in with. Remember, on the outer part. So we'll get something that's big enough, flat enough, and go over the top of it. And then we'll push it down in there and just use the base of it because there's nothing sticking out past it. But it's pretty flat, okay? So you get something big enough to go over that to push up against. I have this, so I use this to push up against. Press on there and it pushes it down, okay? Get it centered and lined up as best as possible. And then press it in. Okay. Goes right in. Like butter. Okay? I'm gonna push it all the way in. From the bottom and out. Then you wanna make sure that them bearings are equally. Get it in there all the way. Okay, now it's bottomed out. Give it a little extra ump. All right, and then release it. Okay, now you get the old bearing in there. Comes right out. Sometimes they don't, you tap on it. So now you want to do is get some anti-seize in there and put your snap ring back in. Okay, snap ring is in. What you want to do is go around your screwdriver and hit it with a hammer. And tap it, make sure it's in. You do that all the way around. Next is to put your flange on. All right. Flange. Get it cleaned up. Put some anti-seize on it. And what you do is you want to push the flange in this way. Okay. You want to push it down. What you want to do is push it down, pushing on this section of the bearing. Okay. You want to press it in. And you don't want to be pushing up against the lug nuts. So you need to get something underneath here to hold that up. Find something that goes around that, sticks up high enough, or just sits on that. I'll use the outer race of an old bearing. You can use yours. You just got to pop these out and get the bearings out and take the guts out, and that's what it'll look like. So I'm going to do that, and that is going to go on like that, and then this is going to go on top, and I'm going to get something that you use to push on that. I can use my socket that I was using. I'll use that and push up against. These stick through there almost flush. They don't protrude out. So we don't want to push up against anything else. We want to do this. We want to sandwich it together. Okay. There's my setup. All right. I'm just going to press it together till it stops. All right. Okay, it's all set. Press it together till it stopped, and release the pressure. And then we'll bring it back over. Okay, remember I told you it doesn't protrude, it's almost flush. And clearance, has no clearance, just a little bit. Turn it, feels good, feels nothing. All right, so that part is done. Now, you need to put this baby back in there, and you line it up with the hole, and you just tap it around, just like a dust cap. Just goes in there, okay? Okay, you got it tapped in equally all the way around. Kind of springy, but it eventually goes in there, and it's good. Now you're ready to put it in on the vehicle. Make sure you put some anti-seize on your splines for your axle shaft. Okay, remember to put the knuckle on at an angle. Start your splines, turn it, drop it into the lower control arm, put your two nuts on and your bolt, tighten those up. Those were the 17s. So now this is where we're at right now. So now all you need to do is turn it. Now line your knuckle with your strut, and then you can push it down and pull your 2x4 out, and then put your two bolts in for your strut and put some anti-seize on. All right, get your strut bolts in. Now you can tighten those up to 160 foot-pounds. Okay. Okay, strut bolts tight, 160 foot-pounds. Put your ABS sensor in. Make sure the surface on the knuckle doesn't have any flaking rust. That will hold that sensor away from it and give it a little bit more, too much space. It might not pick up a good signal. So clean it up. Put some anti-seize on it. Put your bolt in there. Tighten, snug it up. Put your clip back in. And now we're ready for our dust shield. All right. Got your dust shield on there. Get all your bolts started. The 10mm head ones. Put some anti-seize on the threads. Snug them all up. So it's good to go. So now what we need to do is put our brakes back together. And you need to make sure that this surface here on this hub is clean. No rust. No chunks of rust, flakes, or anything. Same goes for inside of the rotor. Make sure it's clean. Doesn't have any rust buildup. If you have rust buildup in there, that separates it. It causes the rotor to go like that, and it'll give you a brake pulsation. You don't want that. So clean that up on the inside of the rotor and on the hub, and put some anti-seize on it. All right, next thing to do is, once you get your rotor on there, is put your caliper bracket on. Caliper bracket bolts on. Those were the 17mm head bolts. You need to torque those to 76 foot-pounds. Next you need to do is put your calipers on. Squeeze your pads, make sure they're in there best as possible. Then get your caliper, line it up, make sure your brake line is not twisted, and put it on there. You might have to squeeze the pads together because they got these springs on there. Okay. Okay, calipers on. Put your bolts in, your caliper bolts. Those are the 14mm head ones. Tighten them up to 22 foot-pounds. Make sure this brake hose is not twisted. All right, so now that you got that done, now all you need to do is put your tie rod on, tie rod end back on. And that was a 17, and get yourself a new cotter pin so you can put it in there on the castle nut. All right, now put your axle nut on, snug it up. Now you need to torque it. You need to torque it for 210 foot-pounds. All right, what you do is you stick a screwdriver in the rotor fins right here. So when you turn it, it hits the caliper bracket and holds the rotor. So then you can torque it. So you torque it to 210. And once you're done with that, you can remove your torque wrench and you can put your tires on. And then you'll need to torque your lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. Well, actually, I think it's 90 on Toyota. So torque them to 90 foot-pounds. And then go inside the vehicle when you lower it down. Pump your brake pedal. Make sure you got a good firm brake pedal because you had the brakes apart and you need to double check to make sure you have a good firm brake pedal. Because you don't want to be putting it in drive or reverse and find out your brake pedal goes to the floor. So that's the reason why you do that. All right, so then that's it. So then once you got your tire on, you got a good brake pedal and you got the wheel torqued, take it for a ride and see how it sounds. If it sounds great, you did an awesome job. If you still got a noise, then you need to go do the other side. And you do it exactly the same way. All right, if I helped you with this hub bearing, wheel bearing, that's great. If you could help me by subscribing, I appreciate it. Thank you. I forgot to tell you to take your chisel and stake the nut down into that groove, okay? Because it kind of like locks it in, all right? Keep it from coming loose, all right? Sorry about that.